Morning, everyone. It is 10:28 a.m. My name is John Martin. I am the chairman of the County Development Committee and call that committee's meeting of Tuesday, September 20th to order. I would ask please that the clerk call the roll.
Berman's here.
Brown,
Brown's here.
Ford,
Ford present.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Here.
Woznicki,
Present.
Braz,
Braz here.
Caius,
Caius present.
Martin,
Martin present.
Shepro.
Shepro present.
Quorum.
The minutes.
Mr. Chairman, Iqbal present also.
We have a quorum. We have minutes of August 16th before us for approval. May I please have a motion? Ms. Woznicki
Woznicki
moves.
moves.
Mr. Caius
Caius second.
seconds. Are there comments or questions? Changes? Hearing none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Woznicki,
Yes.
Braz,
Braz, yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Shepro. And Martin.
Minutes stand approved. Do we have any public comment today with exception of anything that is on the agenda to be discussed later? You'll be given a time then. Hearing none. May we please have the building and zoning report? I should volunteer that Mr. Van Kerkhoff is voiceless today. And so
Mr. Chair,
we have people standing in for him.
Mr. Chair, you skipped over the monthly financials.
Oh, I'm sorry, the monthly financials, which are available in your packet for your review. Thank you for mentioning that. Continue with building and zoning.
All right, thank you. Our first item is the text amendments. We came to you last month to go over our draft to try and get some feedback. They are unchanged for you this month, but just as a refresher and in case anyone missed it, this is part of our effort to advance our Growing for Cane program by taking a look at our zoning ordinance, examining it and seeing if there is anything in there that might be an obstacle to that program. So the changes that we're proposing would expand who and where would be able to open a farm stand, as well as providing some clear definitions for agritourism uses. The hopes of providing clarity both to the public and to the zoning board to make sure that any rezoning applications or any permit applications for those uses can happen much more smoothly.
Do we have a motion, please?
I would make a motion.
Mr. Kenyon moves. Do we have a
I
second?
second.
Mr. Kyle seconds. Madam Chair, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. I had the opportunity on Sunday attending a farmer's market to talk to the owner of Rustic Road Farms, and we talked for about maybe half an hour at his stand in Geneva. And he expressed to me that he would like to have a potential meeting with the county board or with other individuals, similar individuals, obviously would be coming through development, to talk about their business, their small businesses. The fact that he would like to have additional supports, if at all possible, for food growth, say grow food rather than grow crops. And he spoke very intently about that. So I wanted to share that with this committee so that perhaps we can arrange for that meeting to happen. What his concern is that he has a strong business background, but he wants to ensure that other small farmers like himself that grow tomatoes, cucumbers, small herds of beef, lambs, can survive and do and prosper here in King County. And with that, they may need additional land or shared space. He also mentioned with the Forest Preserve for regenerative agriculture. So that is what the content of it was. There was many other things talked about, but that's the basis of it. So see, it would be wonderful, I think, to bring those businesses together. And I'm sure that would be something that Mr. Kenyon would support as well. It's a complementary business.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I'd be happy to reach out to them about. And I'm also happy to say that we're the recipient of a USDA grant that is going to be used to provide business support to food growers specifically over
Wonderful.
the next 3 years.
Very good. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Would you, clerk, please call the roll?
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Wojnicki,
yes,
Fraz,
Raz, yes.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
Martin.
Martin, yes. The ordinance is recommended for approval. Zoning petitions, the first being number 4599.
Good morning, everyone. This is Keith Burkout for the department. I believe you can, I'm looking at the live cam right now. Can you see the PowerPoint in front of you there?
Not yet,
No.
not
Okay.
yet, but it's coming.
Okay, it's worth the wait. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Blair. Okay, this is a request for a special use in the F farming district for a solar energy farm. We'll go to the next slide, please. This is our 2040 plan. You can see the area in blue is highlighted. That's the approximate area of the property as resource management. The area in gray to the north and to the east is the village of Elburn for context, and the red line there is Route 47. This property is south of Kesslinger Road. Next slide, please. And we have our zoning maps here again showing the unincorporated areas, predominantly F farming district as the area in white, and the village of Elburn to the north and to the east in gray. We have two of these slides. One that shows the zoning, and the next one will show the approximate area of the special use of the property for context. And you can see that there. And this also shows the some of the special uses, such as the directly to the west for the gun club there, and some of the subdivisions to the south. Next slide, please. And this, we have a series of aerials here. Starting out, we'll be zooming in. Again, this shows the approximate area highlighted in yellow on the property where the farm would be. And zooming in, you can see the village again and Route 47 there to the east. And next slide, please. Okay, there were two renderings that were submitted by the petitioner. The one on the left is the original one that went out for notice. The village of Elburn was notified. They had some concerns about this and basically asked that the area of the field be moved further west away from Route 47 for aesthetics and also for allowing for development in the future, more space. The petitioners did accommodate that, and the updated site plan you can see is on the right. The village does not have any objection to this at this point, and I believe a representative might be joining us this morning from the village of Elburn to speak. Can you have the next slide, please? And this shows the legal description, I'm sorry, the platted survey for the property. Approximately 41 acres on the southwestern west central portion of the property would be the special use area, and the rest of the 105 acres would be outside of that. Go to the next slide, please. And we had a number of stipulations from staff. We had 3 from the Division of Transportation. Excuse me. First is the owner shall demonstrate that the right of way along Kesslinger Road is 60 feet from center line to the county of Kane. The second is the owner shall dedicate 85-foot half right of way along Route 47 to the county of Kane. And the third, the permittee shall obtain a temporary construction access permit from KDOT prior to any work on site. Next slide, please. And we had, excuse me, 5 from the Water Resources Department. 1, water resource will require a stormwater permit for this development. The need for detention will be evaluated based on the engineer's report and detention triggers for the stormwater ordinance. Best management practices will be required. Depressional volumes must be preserved as per the stormwater ordinance. Number 2, an engineer's report will be required. If the peak flow for the site with the proposed development is increased, stormwater detention will be required for the development. 3, if the detention is required, the base must be designed with a viable outfall. This may involve working with neighboring property owners and reaching the open channel for a viable outfall under the stormwater ordinance. 4, A drain tile study will be required, including upstream and downstream tile systems that rely on the drain tiles within the site. Water Resources is looking for protection of the tile system that is in place, including but not limited to replacement in kind and observation structures if deemed necessary. If the tile system serves other properties, the county may require that the drain tile is replaced with a solid wall pipe to maintain the integrity of the existing drainage system. And the last stipulation from Water Resources is that plantings within the development will not interfere with the drain tiles. We can go to the next slide, please. And the staff recommended comments, the special use would allow for the construction of the solar energy farm on more of the western part of the property. And we go to the next slide, please. And the Zoning Board of Appeals did recommend approval with the recommended stipulations from staff. We had several property owners in the area that were at the zoning board meeting that voiced their objection to this. Their concern was basically on aesthetics and also the potential negative impact on their property values. And that is the file. Thank you.
Thank you. May we have a motion, please?
I would move it.
Mr. Kenyon moves, Mr. Fries seconds. Comments or questions, please? Mr. Fries.
This is located in my district, although I haven't received any comments from the village or the residents, but I know the area well. It's important to note that the parcel directly to the west of it is the St. Charles Sportsman's Club, which is a shooting club. It's been a very good, well-accepted neighbor to the community for decades, but they do generate a lot of shooting noise. So this parcel would not be conducive for future residential uses. My question for Keith is, are we looking at rezoning the entire parcel right up to 38? I'm sorry, right up to Main Kesslinger and 47?
No, it'd be more on the, Blair, if we could go back a couple slides to where they have the two renderings, please. The side by side. One more, please.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, so the one on the right, this shows where it would be. It was going to be closer to Route 47. The Village of Elburn was concerned about that being as close as it was to 47 to allow for other development, possibly commercial, along Route 47. So they had asked the petitioner if they could actually move this back to the west away from Route 47, which the petitioner did revise their site plan and agreed to, and they agreed to that under oath at the zoning board meeting.
Okay, yeah, that was my one concern. So I assume, and I guess this is a question for the petitioner, that the remaining parcels would be open to future possible commercial development. The petitioner online, or?
Alex Mendelson is the representative for their team. Alex, are you with us?
Mr. Mendelson, I can see your face.
And we do have a PowerPoint that Mr. Mendelson and his team put together if Alex wants to reference that as well.
Okay, so I guess I'll just conclude my comments that I'm anxious to hear the neighbors' comments. These type of things are actually pretty quiet neighbors, and it's a good site for it as far as being a buffer for the gun club and the noise that generates. And the plan does still allow for Elburn to have future annexation opportunities for commercial development along those busy roads. Thank you.
Mr. Mendelson, looking at the screen, it appears that you are trying to speak.
Trying to speak. If he tries using his phone, he can dial in.
Perhaps if you use your phone, you could dial in to speak.
Yes.
I think he's trying.
We could try that for Chevron.
Enter your participant ID followed by #. Otherwise, just press
That worked.
the tone. Please record your name. When you have finished recording, press #. You are in the meeting now. There are all in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded.
Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome.
I apologize about that. Thank you, Commissioner Frost and Chairman. So to directly answer your question, that is correct. We are leasing the portion, the approximately 41 acres that you see to the right of the screen. And specifically, when we were planning this and then in further conversation with the Village of Elburn, we looked at their existing zoning as well as their future land use, and made sure to preserve at least the minimum lot depth to allow for future commercial or light industrial use. So to the north, that's over 650 feet. And to the east, that's over 750 feet, which would marry well with the existing lot depth for light industrial and commercial parcels in the village.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Winicki?
Thank you. And I'm here to answer any other questions. I also have pieces of presentation prepared if anyone would like me to get into detail about anything else.
He has a presentation. PowerPoint.
Then, just 1 second. Ms. Winicki?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an observation. When the Village of Elburn asked them to move the solar panel field back away from Route 47, it looks like they added an extra row of solar panels. Am I right about that?
It
Or-
became narrower but longer.
Oh, okay. So they just, all right. They just stretched it and then made it a little bit narrower. Okay.
Thank you.
That's 47 on the
Mr. Chairman, this is Alan.
Route 47, for reference, is the right, is the thoroughfare on the right edge. There's the field and then vacant property and then Route 47
Kesslinger to the north.
and Kesslinger's to the north, yeah.
Hughes, it intersects with Hughes.
Hughes is the little street on the right coming in there.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rickard?
Yeah, I just wanted to request that item or stipulation 6 and 7, that I have a chance to rewrite that. 7, I would like that to be totally removed. And 6 is relative to the access front. We typically try to make sure that it's the zoning area that's impacted. And since the zoning along 47 and the zoning along Kesslinger, at least a significant portion of it, that will occur sometime in the future. The reasonable right-of-way request would occur at the time that that area is rezoned. This is all set back, so my apologies that those 2 stipulations are there. So I am looking at just informing the committee that it's okay to remove 7 and 6. We're primarily concerned about making sure that the access point has enough right of way to accommodate the improvements.
So if verbally we agree to striking 7 and then you will modify number 6 by the time we get to the board for
Yes.
final approval?
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Just a second. The motion was whose motion was it to approve
I
this?
did.
Mr. Kenny and Mr. Frost seconded. Do you,
Can adjust
do
the
you
motion.
agree to adjust those
Yes.
2? Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown?
Yeah, Brown speaking. I got a couple of comments and maybe a question. Some of my questions have already been answered. One was, has Elburn been notified and what is their opinion on this? And we've gotten that answer. And I agree with Mr. Frost. I think this will be a good buffer to the gun range. We've just heard recently some issues where guns are being used in farming areas that are permissible, but yet close to residential areas, and that's a concern. So this kind of helps with that. In their presentation, in their slides that were included with our package, I did learn something, because one of my concerns with solar farms is water runoff, because you're creating impervious area with solar panels that, yeah, it's all still going to run onto the ground, but yet it's being now concentrated into areas where if it just falls onto the earth. It's not concentrated. But in theory, I guess in looking at their packet, in theory, the vegetation that would grow in a solar field has deeper root structure than the root structure of a cornfield. So the ground would be more pervious, I guess I could say. Is that right, Jody, the way I'm looking at this? It could absorb more or the same as if you just leave the field the way it is?
It really depends on the orientation of the solar panels. There's guidance out of Minnesota, and that's kind of the best practice. It's a very complicated Excel spreadsheet. So when we're looking at each individual solar field, the spacing of the panels and the size of the panels and the angle of the panels all goes in, as well as the type of soil that's out there. And so we run those numbers for each field individually, and that then gives us the impervious area that's actually generated. So it's not a 1-to-1. It could be a 1/4 to 1. It could be an 1/8 to 1 on the solar panels versus the open space ground. And that makes the determination under our stormwater ordinance what triggers they meet. To date, I do not recall any solar fields that have actually met a detention requirement. And so most of them have required best management practices, which is the equivalent of below 25,000 square foot of impervious area. So we anticipate something similar for this site, but we won't know until we've run those numbers through our Excel spreadsheet.
No, thank you for that. And this goes to what Mr. Kenyon always talks about, how great our staff is, because I didn't realize you had to put that much effort into evaluating what goes on in a solar field for water detention, but that's good to know. The other one I've got is, I don't know if it's a question or a comment or concern. Concern, it starts out with concern. Concern is that we're taking up farmland to locate solar fields. And solar is the way of the future. I understand that, but we need our crops as well. And the more farmland we take up, the less crops we have. So there has to be a balance there. So I'm concerned that we're taking up good farmland for solar. So I'm wondering, do we have, and this is the question, is there a way that we evaluate our open farmland in a category of, say, good farmland is F, great farmland is A? That's a question before I go any further.
I would recommend a meeting with Mr. Armstrong. There's a very complicated equation that goes into rating our farmland, and that's then reflected on the tax bill for that farmland. It was incredibly fascinating. And I was completely educated in the subject based on Mr. Armstrong's information. And so for a particular farm, he can assist with that determination as to the quality of the farmland and where it rates in the county system.
Okay, good. I'll get with Mark on that, but I guess my follow-up to that would be, I respect people's rights to their property. And, you know, this owner of this property and whomever it may be has got a right to seek whatever variance or zoning that he should want to seek. But I think it would be important to try to protect throughout our county our very valuable, good farmland. If this piece of property or looking into the future, if a piece of farmland is, say, at the, and I'm going to use the A through F category because I don't know how Mark's got it done. But if this piece of property or another piece of property is at the D or an F, hey, fine, great. Solar fields are great. But if it's at an A, let's maybe reconsider how we're looking at this. So those are for future comments and thoughts, but I'm concerned that what we're doing here in the future of solar. So I think we're going to be looking at this more often.
If I may, for this petition, one of the pieces of due diligence that we did for this parcel in particular is we contacted the Kane DuPage County Soil and Water Conservation District for a ranking of that farm and its quality. They have this LISA score, which is right now it's designed to assess whether a parcel is suited for residential development in terms of whether blacktopping farmland, for example, would be a negative thing or positive thing. and it factors in the quality of the soil, among other factors, water infiltration, and more. For this parcel in particular, the Kane DuPage Soil and Water Conservation District responded with a LISA score of 74 out of 300. And the lower it is, the lower the rating of protection. And so this fell into the category of, and I'm quoting, low rating for protection. So that speaks to this farm field in particular. I did want to add that.
Thank you. Ms.
Mr.
Winnicki.
Chairman, Alan?
Just a second, Ms. Allen. Ms. Winnicki's been trying for 5
Sure.
minutes.
Of course.
Yeah, I was going in the exact direction as our speaker was just speaking about the LISA score. Several years ago, when I was first a county board member, I was assigned to a LISA committee, and it's land evaluation and site assessment. And it was fabulous. It was really interesting. And somewhere, and probably up in the development department, is a booklet, I think, that has all the ratings of our the LISA scores of most of our farmland west of 47, if I'm not mistaken. And now that we're talking about this, and with solar panels now coming forward more and more, I know a lot of developers, they used to look at homes, and now a lot of times they're looking at solar farm fields or solar fields in their farms. This might be a good time to put a LISA committee back together and maybe review all the farms once again. I don't know if Jody has any comments to that, but
it would be interesting to take the data from Mark Armstrong and kind of compare with what those
Exactly.
scores have been, because I don't necessarily know that historically they have kind of come together. And so I think including him in this discussion, as well as the LISA data, to see what differences we might see through the evaluation, through the assessor versus that evaluation. So I know there's in the past been some different opinions on the Kane DuPage evaluations. And so I think that's important to include all the data that we have in the mix.
yeah, that'd be great.
I think consistent with the comments that have been made, if we could ask for some thoughts being given by the staff as to how we build this into the mix of recommendations and entitlements or lack of entitlements, because it is a relevant topic, and we need to have a standard so that we're not just absolutely subjective in how we approach this. So if that could somewhere fit into the timeline of.
And I would add too, that there's different camps in the discussion of solar fields and solar panels. If you start looking back in the history of Kane County and how long some of these farms have been operating, and how difficult that is on the soil structure on those farms, not ever having a break, that there is some encouragement as to letting a farm go fallow for 25 years while these solar panels are leased, to rebuild that soil structure. And then in the future, you would actually have a higher graded farm. And so I think you need to bring that into the discussion as well. We've really, lost a lot of our topsoil, and we've lost a lot of that soil structure when these farms have been operating since the 1800s. And so to try to regenerate some of that agriculture, it is a good idea sometimes to put them in fallow for a number of years to rebuild that soil structure. And then you end up with more productive farms at the end of that time period.
Well, I mean, this all goes into the mix, but if we had some standards that we could look at and evaluate as a committee and a board, it would help us. Mr. Mendelson, you have a PowerPoint, I believe. Would you like to present it?
Yes, I can go through. I believe it may be in your packet. Oh. It's the other one. This was there were two presentations. One was by our civil engineer speaking to the specific essential civil engineering considerations of the solar farm. The other by us, as Turning Point Energy. Should I screen share or?
I'm having trouble understanding you. If you could, I don't know what can be done between.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could I suggest, since we're having audio problems, it's in the packet that we were
Okay.
all sent, if anybody has any questions, otherwise.
Well,
could
would
we
you,
skip this?
would you defer to just asking questions from the documents that are in the packet? Mr. Mendelson, we're really having trouble with the audio.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, Mr. Cayos?
Thank you, Caius. In the packet, there is you account for the removal at the end of the lease for this application. Isn't that correct? The
That's correct. There's a decommissioning plan,
decommissioning, that was the word I was looking for.
and the state makes us sign an agriculture impact mitigation agreement that provides for the specifics of that decommissioning and holds us to that legally.
So I guess my point is I understand the standards and what we're talking about, but this isn't, there will be no removal of soil for the installation or maintenance of this project. Is that correct?
That's correct. Soil will stay on site.
So it's not like we're putting in a housing project where they scrape all the soil off, sell it to somebody and then put down something that's less suitable.
That's correct.
Yeah. So given it's a limited lifespan and it looks like some of the pictures that you have in your presentation are that would have some sort of a pollinator mix possibly, or a wild as opposed to just a grass. Is that correct?
That's correct. It will be a native prairie pollinator mix. As least.
Great. So I guess those 3 points together is that when we look at the quality of the soil now, we're really just as Ms. Wolnick explained or pointed out, this could well be and should well be over the span of the 20 or 25 years that this project is in place, actually an improvement of the soil. And then in 25 years, not that I'll care about it too much at that time, possibly, but for the next generation, we'll have a better an opportunity to actually, given that the farm prices are high and Mr. Kenyon ancestors get
The way to the bank now.
get money. Yeah, that's right. He might want to put corn back in there in 20 years. Anyway, I didn't want to draw that out too much, but I think this kind of project improves as opposed to detracts from. That's why and then my other question was, did we have concerns from the neighbors and what were they?
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
Just, we had some concerns from neighbors and where were the neighbors? I'm looking at it here on Google Maps. Doesn't appear to be any, I think it was aesthetics.
Aesthetics, and this is Keith Burkout. They had concerns about aesthetics and also the potential negative impact on their property values. One of the neighbors was directly to the south of this property, and I believe the other one was across the street on the east side of Route 47.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rick Ball, your hand is up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have two questions, one for the developer. The question was about the native soil and so forth. So my question is, what kind of a foundation are you going to have? Would it be in a drill piers or something else?
Depending on the outcome of the geotechnical study, which would be performed prior to building permit, it would be either driven piers or screwed piles. But that would be determined at the time of the geotech study.
What is the first one? Of drill piers or the screw?
Driven piers or vehicle piles,
Okay,
depending on the condition.
okay. That would, of course, the question was about the impact on the natural soil, and that will create the very minimum impact in both situations. But I'm surprised that you have not conducted any geotechnical so far, and you are going into this project and asking for a permit, but you don't know what this soil is.
We've found that the foundational supports of the solar farms that we're able to address it in a low impact way, regardless of the subsurface condition. That's what my engineering team tells me. Of course, if there's bedrock underneath, that's a different story, but that's not something that we've encountered or heard about in this region. And so you're right, more will be determined at the building permit stage. But we feel good about the viability of this project if it meets the board's pleasure to allow it to continue. So we're certainly willing to invest.
Well, and am I?
Okay.
This is
Second
John.
question. Yeah, thank you. Second question is to both Mr. Burkout and to the developer regarding the house on the south. That's the only concern I have. How much is the distance from the edge of the southernmost panel to the house?
So that's
And
the
what
house
are you-
of.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So that's the house of Father Max as part of our outreach. I spoke with Father Max. He did not have any objection to the solar farm. He's the pastor of St. Paul's Catholic Church. I'd have to measure that distance and get back to you on the exact distance.
So you're saying there's no residential, it's a church?
It's the residence of the father, and surrounding that residence is a farm field that is managed by an owner that outside of Elber.
No, between the southernmost panel to the edge of the house, is there how much is the distance? And roughly, you can say 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, something like that.
Yes, it's more than 200 feet.
More, okay. So did you explore any concern about the glare from the solar panel over to this house?
Yes, we specifically performed the glare studies for numerous points that are part of our application. That glare study is part of our application, but we performed glare studies along Route 47, its entire length, along Kesslinger, its entire length, and then in surrounding vicinity at points all around the periphery of the parcel, including at that location. We performed the glare study using Forge Solar software. There was no measured glare at any point during the year.
One more question. Your outlay of the panels, would it be permanently fixed, facing the south, or would it be on some kind of a rod axle so they can move as the sun moves from east to west?
Right. So they would track tracker system. So they would track the sun as it moved east to west.
Okay, thank you.
Alan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Deborah. Miss Allen.
Oh, thanks so much. I wanted to just follow up on Mr. Caius and Mr. Brown and Ms. Wolnick. Our own solar project, we are putting pollinator plants in there. So we enhance the environment and the roots are deeper. So that'll certainly help with water runoff. So thanks to the developer for going in that direction and for Mr. Caius for pointing it out. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Fraz.
Just a couple observations as far as local knowledge out there. There's no residences abutting this at all. I think the closest one is that little F1, and that's the rectory for the church across the street. It sounds like they were not opposed. The small portion of city limits to the east, that's the Napa facility. Everything else around there is expected to become commercial of some sort. And then I would point out to the north across Kesslinger, that's all incorporated, and there is sewer and water, right up along Kesslinger. So the most likely scenario for the balance of this property, setting aside the solar farm, is annexation. Somebody, possibly this petitioner, somebody else coming in and petitioning to annex into the village, and they would fall under their zoning for likely commercial or industrial property. But I just want to make sure we do hear from the public before we vote.
Hear from the public.
There were some people signed up to speak, I believe, weren't there?
Oh, my goodness. I apologize. Mr. Bubeck. Oh, wait, that's a different project. No, we don't have anybody.
Nobody on this.
The only speaker was Mr. Mendelson.
Okay, so I guess I'll just conclude. Again, I haven't received any calls on this, but I think a solar farm is a pretty good, quiet neighbor.
Yeah.
And a real good buffer for the gun club out there. And when housing was super hot, there's always talk about this becoming some kind of residential development. I know I would have been opposed to it, but it would have likely been a village concern at that time. The gun club does have a high water table and hydric soils. So I actually think this is a pretty good use of the property. And I like the way they set aside the land the way they did. They're really not encumbering the village for future development out there. And I just want to make sure there wasn't anybody online from the village, Village of Elburn, that wanted to speak.
Okay, is there anyone from the Village of Elburn? Hearing none, let's call the vote.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Ford, Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Fraz,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Martin.
Martin, yes. Motion carries. Planning and special projects. We have a separate statement to be made.
I think Mr. Van Kirkhoff noted that it's in the packet and it would just be placed on file.
That's fine, thank you. Subdivisions. First being adjustment of lot 19 in Meadow Ridge.
Good morning. Lot 19, if you'll recall, has been before you a couple of times. It's been tabled a few times so that more research could be done. I was hoping to get the PowerPoint up just to refresh your memory. If you recall, lot 19 is before you, requesting that a restriction on the subdivision plat that no access to Bolcom Road be allowed from lot 19 in Meadow Ridge. If we could go to the PowerPoint. There we go. Thank you. It's always easier to talk when you have a picture in front of you. So as you'll recall, Meadow Ridge is over on the north side of Bolcom Road. The lot 19 is highlighted there in blue. Originally, this lot was a flag lot back in '93 when the parcel was platted. Before 1999, the owner of Lot 18 and 19, who owned both parcels, sold the pole portion of the flag lot to the adjoining lots, which in essence created a landlocked parcel for Lot 19. As on this subdivision plat, there is a restriction that it cannot use Bolcom Road as its access point, given the curve that's right there in Bolcom Road. So the owner of the parcel had come before us asking for a variance for that, at which point in time we had sent out notification. Some of the restrictions that the technical staff found, KDOT had another list of items that they wanted the board to be aware of. And Mr. Rickard is present today if he would like to add any comments to this.
Just a couple comments. The transportation staff has been concerned about how this occurred, as well as the staff was concerned about having a situation where access potentially could be at this location. So staff has always recommended that access come off of the cul-de-sac, stating that there may be other considerations that the committee has to take into account. In the discussions, there were, this committee directed staff to look at if there were other alternatives. You know, our primary concern with all of this, again, was the process, which was not anything to do with the county, but just how this occurred. And then secondly, that the site distance out there is a concern. We typically look at a recommended site distance. And then at a bare minimum, if we can't achieve that recommended site distance, we look at stopping site distance. This access point exceeds stopping site distance slightly, but as all of you are probably aware, the actual speed or the prevailing speed on many of our roads in the county is significantly higher than the stopping site distance requirements. And so we've been consistent in saying that we really need to try to achieve access off of the cul-de-sac. The state's attorney's office has looked at this, and I'm not an attorney, but they have basically said that we really should look at what's called an implied easement of necessity, and that should be looked at first. And so I think at this point in time, that's what we're recommending, is that we look at that aspect of it, and that the state's attorney's office kind of coordinate. I can talk with Mr. Jager and have him talk to the owner, but look at that next step. But that's, again, this is the committee's prerogative. We're just trying to figure out primarily ways to maintain the safety aspect, as well as to hopefully not have a situation like this in the future sometime.
I would just jump into as the plat officer. Our memo from July was included in the packet. We've reviewed the state's attorney's review as well, and we concur with KDOT as the plat officer that the options to achieve access off the cul-de-sac should be looked at. And so I just wanted to make sure that was on the record as the plat officer as well.
Well, if I could just make a comment, we've continued this wanting to, I think, kind of have the facts filled in. And at least as I sit here today, I don't feel that we know much more than we did the day this first came in. And you know, from what I recall of real estate law, if you are seeking a variance for the application of an ordinance, you typically, it can't be a self-induced issue. And we've got a circumstance here where the access disappeared, where lot 18 acquired lot 19. And now we're sitting here today with a problem that we're being asked to address, but it was created in some chain and by some link of the chain by the ownership, it would seem to me, unless there's a different set of facts. And it's a little awkward sitting here, to be real blunt about it. The majority of this committee sat here for the transportation committee meeting an hour ago when we had a very detailed discussion of the importance of our highway restrictions and this and the maintaining the safety on behalf of our citizenry. So I think I would entertain. And I don't like, having said that, I don't like to see unused real estate. It's a difficult circumstance, but we have questions. We've had the same questions since the day this came in, and I would like to entertain one more motion to table this for 30 days with hopes that the developer or the owner could come in and say why everything I've just said for the last 2 minutes is incorrect. We need more facts here if we're going to be considering bending the rules relative to our highway department and our staff recommendation. And I don't see them as we have them today. But if this group is willing to extend for another 30 days, I would entertain. And before we do that, once we do that, we can have no discussion. And I know, Mr. Hall, you've signed up to speak. If you were, go ahead. It's a little bit out of order because typically we don't do things unless there's been a motion, but you've been here 2 or 3 times, so.
Well, thank you very much. I understand the issues with the Platt Act being used here and what happened almost 23 years ago is basically cut off that access. But I wanted to come in and kind of explain a little bit more about the situation that my client and I found ourselves in. My client, who's a neighbor of mine, contacted me in June of 2019 and told me that they were going to go through a divorce and that he was looking at some properties and found a piece of property that was close to where they live now, that would also be able to keep their kids in the school system they're in. And they also have a son with special needs. And in part of the home that we're designing has a special therapy area for their son. And the whole goal is to keep the family closer together and make things easier as it goes along. So my client purchased that lot in 2020. And we looked up in the parcel information on the Kane County maps, which you saw previously, and it just showed the lot section, Balcom Road, and there was no presumption of any issues. My client purchased the lot. There's nothing in the title that stated the fact that there was no access to the lot. And so we started the design process. And we ordered a survey shortly after that, 8/11/20, and we had a boundary survey and topography done, which we normally do to start constructing a custom residence. And that also showed that there was no issue. It's actually, we have it on a thumb drive. So it's on that parcel. You can see where the lot 19 is shown, and in the back, a utility easement. But again, that matched up with the information that was on the Kane County online map. And so we didn't really see any issues with that. So we proceeded with our designs, and during COVID, we put the project on hold for a little while due to cost and supply chain issues. And then we came back later in 2021 and was able to kind of revise the plan a little bit, get to a point where we were able to go. So we went under contract in January of 2022. We completed final designs and septic engineering. And then if you go to the next one we have there, we applied for permit with this single family home with a horseshoe drive with 2 entrances off of Balcom Road. In fact, we also got when we applied for permit, we're also required to apply for road access permits. And we were granted road access permits from the St. Charles Township Road District for both entrances. And about shortly thereafter in March, Deanne had found the issue with the plat, the subdivision plat, which we did not have a copy of or aware of during this. and brought up the issue to us. So right away, we reached out to the Department of Transportation, to Kurt Nika and Keith McGraw. And we basically sent over the information. I did some initial site distance just off of Google Maps and from the GIS site. And we even at that point said, we understand the concerns and we'd be willing to vacate the eastern lot or the eastern driveway. And they said that they wanted to have the state's attorney look into it and that we should get a site distance survey. So my client went through the expense of getting the site distance survey. The site distance survey shows that the western entrance is, and actually this is, if you go to the, sorry, it may not be in your packets, but in July 15th, we received a letter from with initial comments from the Department of Transportation, which were basically in the packet, the original packet when we came in front of this committee. And that was the July 19th letter, where it states that the county or the staff recommends this minor revision. And we actually took a look at it, and even though the site distance is shorter than the minimum requirement that the county has, it's actually 150 feet longer than the minimum requirement of 425 feet when you are traveling on the other direction coming in. So where the shortest site distance is, it's actually 575 feet, not 425 feet, which is the minimum AASHTO and IDOT requirements to be considered for something like this. My client has spent a lot of money on this. Now we're at the point where we've incurred with these delays and having to think about it more, the tabling. We've got now the inflation is through the roof. You've got supply chain issues, and my client has committed to building this home for his family. And it was never their intent to build this home with access off of Fox Grove Court. It was never even never even thought about it, because the lot presented to us and the lot that was purchased didn't have that. And we just feel that this situation that occurred happened a long time ago. And it's important that we're able to come to terms and see if we're willing to work with you to get access to this lot. It just doesn't make sense to have it not accessible. I understand the site distance and the speed and everything there, but when we look at the 575, the design curve rating on that turn or curve is 50 miles an hour. The 575 actually increases the allotment to where we qualify at 55 miles an hour. So we are safer than the bare minimum, and we're willing to work within realistic recommendations to further make that entrance safer. But I really feel that tabling this another month is not going to give any further help, because my client's not interested in building the home and reversing it and having the backyard facing Bolcom Road. That was never the intent in everything that we have purchased.
But, and I don't want to turn this into a negotiation, but on behalf of the committee, should we continue the conversation today, we're in effect negotiating without the benefit of staff review or a report based upon your revised considerations.
Well, actually, excuse me, sir, the staff saw our site distance study. We submitted it.
But they're not supportive of this moving ahead.
Well, they were in July 19th.
Mr. Berman?
Well, I would be in support of approving this if that entrance point would be moved as far west as possible.
Which we can do.
I would
Take
be,
any consideration.
I would be able to approve this.
Mr. Chair, question.
Mr. Brown?
The 575, is that what you said it is? The site distance?
Yes.
Is that just the west driveway or the east driveway?
So like with let me see, Full comments on this state, the west entrance meets the county required distance to the west, looking toward approaching westbound traffic on Bolcom. So we meet the 890 requirement. And the west entrance is also 575 feet sight distance to the east, looking toward approaching the westbound traffic on Bolcom coming up the curve. The entrance's stopping distance is 150 feet longer than the minimum requirement of 425.
Mr. Fries.
I want a question for Mr. Rickard. The petitioner said they had gotten permits previously from St. Charles Highway Department, but this is a county highway, correct?
No, this is a township road.
Road,
Yeah.
and we're the advisors to the township, so that's why.
Yeah, in this situation, in access, the Township Highway Commissioner did not talk to us about the concerns here. They did go ahead and proceed because they assumed that access could come off of Bolcom, but access in accordance with the plat cannot come off of Bolcom.
I guess my other comment would be if the discussion leads to actually considering this today, I do not think we should consider allowing two. You know, why, when we got when we have a concerned situation, why would we want to double it?
If I could just add, the July 19th comments are on there, and if we could hit those just so that I can be clear, because the staff didn't recommend approval. What we did was, if does somebody have that wording? Whoops, back one. It says staff recommends access for lot 19 be via Foxwood Court. So we've always been consistent that we feel it should come off the cul-de-sac. Because of the various nuances, we did say that if the committee decides to allow access to occur, it should be located as far to the west as possible. We don't feel comfortable entirely with that, but if the committee heads in that direction, it should be as far west as possible. The two access points shown on the concept drawing should not occur. So we're still recommending the connection to the cul-de-sac. The state's attorney's office says that there is a means to achieve that, and so that's kind of where we've been. At the same time, we also, as Mr. Hall has voiced, there's been a lot of things that have occurred over the last 20 years that should have never occurred. And so I think at staff level, we're just expressing the concern about the site distance, because again, that's the minimum site distance, and the concerns are we do have situations where there's no other alternative. There's no other alternative. So we utilize the minimum stopping site distance, but it's not what our recommended site distance is. So we're just putting all the points in front of you because of the concerns and regarding safety.
Mr. Fries.
Just a follow up. I just want to be absolutely sure, and this question is to Mr. Hall. You know, we're getting all of our experts, including the state's attorney, saying, you know, that effort should be exhausted to try and get the easement back.
That's okay.
So I just want to be absolutely clear. Has there ever been an attempt to contact the person who purchased the flag easement and try and reacquire it?
No, because my client never had the intention of building with having access from Fox Grove Court, which would require reversing the house, flipping it, and having his backyard facing Bolcom Road. It was always purchased with the intent, with the information that was there, and even our plat of survey that we had done shows that there was no access back there. So that was never something that they wanted to do. And that's why we're willing to make the concessions that we are to we'll move the driveway closer to the west. We'll do whatever requirements are needed for that to make this happen. But my client would like to build his family's home on that lot.
Okay. But citing houses with the back to Bolcom is kind of the trend of the neighborhood, at least to the
The house, I'm sorry, excuse me, sir, but the house on the left of it, if you go back to the first image on the slides for this. Oh, sorry. So you can see to the left, there's a home that has the driveway on Bolcom Road.
Correct.
And so what we're saying is that we're willing to do a similar thing, move our driveway as close to that left side as possible. And any demarcations, if we want to have a sign put up to say there's driveways on the curve, like we see in different parts of the county in different areas, I think anything like that, visibly, whatever we can do, we'd be happy to do.
I just want to comment that when you look at that house to the left, their driveway is at a steep angle to the farthest corner. And I don't know, but it kind of shouts out to me that at some point, the county indicated that they wanted their driveway as far away as possible from this.
Yeah, I think actually the way, if you look at the plat, right there, that was actually designed that way to have two driveways meet at that section.
Thank you.
But I agree. I mean, with the site distance, we agree that it needs to be safer, and we're willing to make it as safe as we possibly can. But according to the July 15th letter that we received, we are not at the bare minimum distance. We're 150 feet above that.
Browns.
Mr. Caius.
Did you have your hand up? first?
That's all right. Go ahead.
It's just, this is an unfortunate circumstance. I wish there was an easy solution. I wouldn't feel comfortable voting to have the driveway on Bolcom unless we could get some negotiated thing through staff that would be a recommendation that would be acceptable.
Well, and if
Here's I can tell they're saying you could do it that way, but we don't recommend it. I don't think it's wise for us to.
Well, we've been requesting additional information and what I think it can conclude is that we're not going to receive any more. And what we have before us are a static set of facts and Mr.
Excuse me, actually, the recommendation was in the stipulation.
Well, I'm not here to discuss that or debate it with you.
Oh, no, I'm not.
I'm saying that, and it's unfortunate, this is kind of a debate. I'm just stating what I am saying, that I won't be comfortable unless we have staff come back.
Well, let's this, if delay is not going to serve a purpose, then I will entertain a motion to approve and we will vote today.
Mr. Chair, a question first before we go to a motion. Carl, what was the term that you used, the state's attorney said could be pursued?
The language that the state's attorney sent to us was, I think it's called an implied easement of necessity. Because currently, under the plat, there is no access permitted to Bolcom. And so this is an opportunity to make sure it's done correctly. And again, it's called an implied easement of necessity. I wish I could speak to it, but it's really the state's attorney's office that came up with.
Yeah, that's okay. I guess my thought on it is implied easement of necessity means you're gonna, through legal means, go to the existing owner of that, what was gonna be a driveway area, and take that land back from him for an easement. We don't know what's there. There could be fences, there could be trees. It doesn't matter. That person thought he bought that property and he can use it as he chooses. Now, through legal means, you're gonna be going to him and you're gonna say, I'm taking this back from you through an implied easement of necessity. Talk about creating bad blood in the neighborhood.
I think we have,
Mr. Chairman.
Repeat what I said, Mr. Berman.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve with the access point as far to the west as possible. One access point far to the west.
Do we have a second?
Can I add to that motion? Just, can we add just that they should work with KDOT before they make a final decision? I know that we're asking them to move it to the as far west as they can, but I think KDOT needs to comment on that, at least see what they're doing
Well, I mean, as far west, I would assume to mean on the border,
on the lot line.
on the lot line, unless there is a physical reason why that can't be done.
Okay, I will,
If that's, is that part of your, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Winnicki seconds. Do we have comments or questions, Mr. Fraz?
If, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with the proposal, but if we're going to consider approving something, I have some additional stipulations I'd like to add to the current stipulations. The first one being that only a single access drive or access point be allowed. At that access point, the drive has to be a 2-car width for a depth of at least 30 feet from the edge of pavement, so that if there's a car coming out, another car could still turn in without stopping. 2 durable pedestals be installed with reflectors at the end of the drive, so people can see it on a dark night or stormy night. And then 2 signs be paid for by the petitioner and put up by the township to stipulate or state that there's a driveway entrance ahead.
Are you willing to add those stipulations, Mr. Fraz and Ms. Winnicki?
Mr. Chairman, Ford,
Mr. Ford?
along with that, I think we need to make sure that there's a turnaround area within the driveway.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Okay, so,
I think, excuse me.
okay, are you willing to add that, Mr.?
Well, yes, I am. But, you know, in his initial drawing, having 2 accesses, he obviously was interested in providing as much space for the driveway as possible. So I'm sure a backup place would not be a problem.
Not at all.
All right.
We actually, one of the things we submitted earlier was like a little like a circle drive up in front of the front door to kind of compensate. So you could definitely move around. And with the extra width, you would have that too.
Ms. Winnicki, are you accepting of the Mr. Ford's requirement of a turnaround so that on the property? Okay. Are there any other suggested modifications or conditions? All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, Shepro.
Mr. Shepro?
Hi, this is just a quick comment in response to Mr. Berman's question. An implied easement by necessity is an easement recognized under Illinois law where a landowner has conveyed a parcel, a landlocked parcel to another purchaser. And essentially, the implication is that there is an implied intent not to have another landlocked parcel, but that an easement of access must be implied in order to permit the second parcel to have access. If that makes any sense.
Thank you. All right. Are there any further comments? Mr.
I've been
Kenny?
here, Kenyon, I've been here a while, and I don't really remember so much discussion trying to do the right thing. We don't want somebody to come back and say, boy, you shouldn't have let us do it because it was wrong decision. So we're spending a lot of time we're trying to use our experts to do the best thing for your person. That's all we're trying to do. We don't want to tell you what to do. We want to tell you what the best thing is you can do.
I understand that.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no further comments, then I'm going just to make sure that the record is clear. This motion is to approve adopting all the recommendations. And what we're talking about here is adding that there will be one point of access as physically far west as possible on the property. There will be at least 2 cars in width. There will be 2 pedestals that make it clear where the driveway is. There will be 2 road signs purchased at the expense of the owner, and the property design will include a turnaround so that cars do not have to back out on Welcome Road. Clerk, please call the roll.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Fraz,
Raz, yes.
Caius,
Caius, no.
Martin.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
You still have 2 agenda items left.
I certainly do. Up next is a pool reduction request in Mill Creek. Oops, there we go. We're over off of South Hathaway Drive, which is just north of Hughes and west of Harrington Road. You can see this is the parcel outlined in the blue. I want to bring attention to the members here that the owner received letters from every single residence that you see on this slide here. They are all in favor of the variance request for the pool. And this is an exhibit of what the pool will look like. The rear yard setback in Mill Creek for a swimming pool is 20 feet. They are requesting that be reduced to 15 feet. Our findings are that proper notification has been done. This will not affect the PUD, and the recommendations from staff is that this be approved.
Raz moves.
Mr.
Brown
Fraz moves.
seconds.
Mr. Berman seconds. Comments or questions? Mr.
Yeah, I have a little history with this thing. It's in my district, and the owner actually called me and asked me to stop by and show me what he was planning on doing. Seems like everybody in the neighborhood has a pool, and everybody in the neighborhood has a bunch of kids, and they all kind of share the backyards. My advice to him was to get letters from the neighbors saying that they don't oppose it, which he's done. And my other recommendation was they put the equipment pads on the east side of his house. They have an extra wide side yard over there. And it was it would seem to be the place of least irritation to the neighbors, and they've done that. So I strongly recommend approval.
Anyone else? Clerk, please call the roll.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Fraz,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin.
Martin, yes. Motion carries. Item C, Deer Path Road Estates.
The final item in front of you today from, here's all the letters from the neighbors. I apologize. The final item is at Deer Path Road Estates South. It's down where the village of North Aurora meets the city of Batavia. The owner lives in the unincorporated portion. He's seeking relief from a platted 50-foot building setback, as well as a revision to a 33-foot roadway easement that extends on his property. To give you a better idea of where this parcel is located, we have CV Road, Deer Path. You can see the village of North Aurora is highlighted there in the kind of orange shade there. That north line on the village of Aurora is the limits of their planning area. Everything north of that point is technically in the city of Batavia's planning area. So both entities were contacted for this variance. Village of Aurora had no comment. They didn't have any concerns about it. The city of Batavia had a few comments for us. We took their comments into consideration, and we adjusted the proposed roadway easement request in a different manner. I do want to point out, as you can see on here, the subdivision to the south, it lines up, the easterly edge of one of the parcels lines up with the roadway should it ever be extended. But the majority of the road would go through the lot too. And to kind of clarify this point, this is the plat of subdivision from Autumn Ridge. The area that's in the red is the parcel that's in front of you today that denotes the limits of lot 4. The area that is in blue is the farm parcel that is to the east of that particular lot. The dashed line that you see in red is the approximate location of the 35-foot roadway easement. As you can see, if that easement ever was incorporated and the roadway continued further south, it would go through the buildable portion of lot 2. When Autumn Ridge was platted, the easterly portion of lot 2 was granted as an emergency access easement. I have heard from Joe Keim, who is currently the developer of Autumn Ridge down there, and he says there is utilities that are within that 40-foot wide public utility easement. What we are presenting to you today, to give you a basic of what we're trying to change here, the little exhibit to the top of the screen shows what's currently out there. You can see the 50-foot building line as it extends all the way straight to the southern portion of the property. You can also see that there is a 33-foot roadway easement. What we are asking for approval today is that the setback line be reconfigured to wrap around the existing T that is at the end of the street, and that verbiage be included on that roadway easement that whenever the roadway is continued easterly or southerly, that any portion unused of that easement be automatically terminated, similar to the 2 little wings for the turnaround on the existing roadway. I do want to let the committee know at 9 o'clock this morning, I had received a letter from Joe Keim, and I had spoke with him on the phone, and he is in concurrence with our proposal here, as long as the little blurb in the red on the bottom that we include southerly or easterly extension of this roadway, that anything that's not used for this roadway when the road is extended is automatically terminated. With that, it is the recommendation of staff that this be approved.
Now we have a motion for Mr. Fries moves. Mr. Berman seconds. Any comments or questions, Mr. Berman?
Yes, at one point in time, the farmland there was proposed by Mr. Keim to be developed, and it was turned down by the Batavia Township or Batavia because they had jurisdiction over it. But here they are, they're okay in it, one lot. And I have no problem with that. And I don't think the village of North Aurora doesn't have any problem with it either.
Any other comment? Sir?
Good morning.
Are you the property owner?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Your name, please.
Yes, I'm Thomas Ray. I own that farm.
Yes, sir.
That we're talking about. We bought that property 60 some odd years ago. The neighbor on that lot, when they're now asking for this variance, was satisfied with that 33 easement. I was. We didn't know what was coming in that area. That easement was set aside. Even today, we have no idea what's going to happen to the south of us and to that subdivision that's there. They may make changes. The fire department is closer to that property than the Batavia Fire Department would be to our property. Initially, they were saying, we're not going to extend the road all the way up to the south. And we never want to see that road extended. We don't want to see a lot of traffic going through there, but we need access. And I think it would be a mistake to start taking away easements that someday may be needed. They've sat there for years and years. We have no idea what developments are going to come in to the south or on our property. Just leave the things the way they are. When development occurs, that's the time to make changes, not now. You don't know what's coming.
Well, I don't think we're making any changes.
If you change that easement and take it
We're
away,
not.
you've made a change.
We're not changing the easement. We're just changing the setback requirement of the property owner.
The 33-acre easement is being
Still
taken
there.
away.
No, it isn't. Deanne, would you?
The 33-foot easement will remain until such a time as the roadway is extended either easterly or southerly. Chances are they won't need that entire easement to go easterly. So the owner is requesting that that the restriction of the roadway easement be removed at the time that that roadway is extended. Because obviously if he goes, if the roadway continues east with the future development into the farmland, you're not going to need that additional roadway easement that extends all the way down to Autumn Ridge subdivision.
But there still would be a easement on the,
Easement stays.
Easement stays.
Until the final plan is in place, which I think addresses
That's correct.
your concern.
Okay.
From the plat you have up there, you're taking away the 33 easement and you're just giving the owner of that new property a 10-foot setback from the center line that goes right down the road.
But the easement to the right is for emergency.
Okay,
That
well,
goes
there's an
through
easement on
Floodplain.
both sides. There's an
No, we're not.
easement On both sides of the road. The center line goes right down our street. And what I'm saying is let's leave things the way they are. Don't start changing now. We have no idea what's going to go in there. There may be solar farms. There may be residential developments. There may be all kinds of things. Why start changing things now? It was set up. They didn't know how they'd need it or want it. Don't take it away. Leave it now. But
Right.
thank you for your consideration.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions? We have a motion, do we not?
Yeah, you do.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Kenyon.
Yeah.
Woznicki,
May I ask one quick question? We are not changing the easements, correct?
Said that twice.
Yeah, right.
All right, then I will vote yes.
Bras,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Brown. Fraz, yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
We have environmental resources.
We have one item under water resources for the floodplain awareness open house. If you can, oh, maybe I can forward. Here we go. This will be held, we're very excited about this. It'll be held September 26th through October 1st. It's being put on by the Department of Environmental Water Resources, along with support from the Conservation Foundation, as well as our local representatives from FEMA. And the program is really open and dedicated to our residents and realtors that operate in Kane County. We invite all of you as board members also to attend. There's no cost. It's all virtual, so you can hop on to whatever discussions you'd like to listen into. And those available links will be in Kane County Connects and also distributed on social media as the week progresses. So just looking at what is going to be kind of available through the program for residents specifically, just an explanation of what floodplain is and where it can occur. Also the regulations that apply to our residents and about flood insurance. And then we'll also have some information about the importance of wetlands in Kane County. For HOAs, that's going to be a really exciting presentation on the maintenance of their stormwater basins and stormwater facilities that they'll want to tune in for. For our professionals, there'll be additional information about what an elevation certificate is and how to fill them out and how that links into your costs of homeowners insurance, as well as potential flood proofing that our residents and our professionals might want to do for existing properties. And key in this is for our realtors. We get a lot of calls in our department from potential buyers of property where they're not being informed by the realtors that the property is even in a floodplain or what they can do with that property that's located in the floodplain. So we're going to work with those realtors to help educate them on what important information should be listed on their site with the listing of a property that's located in the floodplain and what restrictions might be available. And we always like when we drive around to see our realtor signs up on properties we are aware of that have had flooding in multiple times. We always reach out to those realtors and work to educate them and provide them with resources to educate any kind of buyers on those properties. So here's the schedule of events, Monday through Friday, intro to floodplains, passive and active flood protection. The wetland and detention basin maintenance will be on Wednesday. Our FEMA representatives will be on Thursday to answer questions about floodplain regulations and insurance. And on Friday will be the Conservation Foundation's presentations. So please join us for one or for all. Again, the Zoom links will be put out on Kane County Connects once we have those, as well as our social media network. Thank you.
You're very welcome. There was just an article in the paper, I think it was the city of Geneva, that has determined that it has areas now that flood, not because they were poorly designed or have failed, but because with the extreme weather events we now suffer, the designs that were utilized are no longer adequate to meet the upcoming anticipated storm. So life's a-changing. Thank you. We have nothing from community reinvestment today. And do we have any new business that people would like to discuss? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to place reports on file?
Berman move.
Berman moves.
Ford seconds.
Ford seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Now we got to
Roll call.
Call the roll, please.
We want you to be entirely legal. We don't want to repeat this meeting.
Berman,
Berman, yeah.
Brown,
Don, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Wojnicki, Froz, Caius,
Yes.
Martin.
Martin, yes. We have no need for executive session. May I have a motion to
Let's
adjourn?
move, we adjourn.
Ms. Winicky seconds.
that is
All in
meeting.
favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.